Okay, so Kung Fu Panda. Oh, what made you want to jump onto the series?
Our agent sent us the brief. It's like,
I mean, it's a fun property, and also Jack Black was doing the voice, so it's like, how could you not want to do that? And this show actually goes places, it goes to like some darker places, which was fun to do something a little different than some of the films.
and it gets to explore a bunch of different instruments, and as they travel the world. So it's kind of fun to incorporate music of India, not only China, but India,
so
England.
The characters left China, and so we got to travel around the world with them and do lots of different music that wouldn't normally be in Kung Fu Panda.
Right, so that's my question. So how much of it is you want to create? You got to create new original music, but you also want to honor the franchise because. So what is the juggling, balancing act? Trying to make sure you keep it the way it's supposed to, but also not just you do more different things.
It is It is a chat we had early on with them. So we want to be mindful of the sweeping scores of John Powell and Hans Zimmer who scored the movies, but I think once you get a TV show going and once you score 10, 20 episodes, they trust you, so you kind of open up the world to explore a bit more. And
yeah, I felt like a little bit of pressure at the start just because I think those scores are so great for the movies, but thankfully. One thing the showrunner said was like we should do our own theme, and then he kind of encouraged us to don't feel the pressure, just be inspired by. So that kind of shift in mentality just made it into something fun as opposed to like I have to match this. Yeah.
And how's it actually taken through the whole series? You get to develop and grow it, where often you might come in just for an episode or a film where it's one and done. Right. What is the process for you? Like, we can tweak it. We can now evolve it.
Sure. Well, kind of, as we mentioned, as they travel the world, you can take existing themes and play them on new instruments, which is kind of nice to show a character that we started off with. You might, have their theme performed on a different instrument or the different key or whatever, and so it kind of shows a little evolution to their development. They really go through quite an adventure with this story through 40 episodes. So I think exploring those initial themes and how can you manipulate them in interesting ways.
Yeah, definitely. I remember. We start off with like the villains just having a 4-note little motif for them, but then later in the show we find out their backstory, and so we almost start to empathize with them, so we could take those 4 notes and then have it be almost more like a melody with some emotional chords underneath. So yeah,
which actually leads to my big question, so when you're doing a series like that, do you want to know the full arc of each character, or do you say, wait a minute, if I know the person's the villain, I might change the score, but the audience shouldn't. So how do you juggle that? Do you want to know in advance, or do you want to go episode by episode?
I personally would like to know, because one thing that's fun for me is kind of like planning it and having this puzzle and how do all the pieces fit together. But that rarely happens, and maybe sometimes the people writing the show don't even know where you're going to end up. Yeah.
It's sometimes nice to know, but then how can you leave the trail of lightly indicating that things might, as Bob said, maybe there's a little more character development to the antagonist, but you don't want to be too sympathetic yet, of course, but how can you kind of find that balance?
Yeah, like if you found out these two characters were going to be siblings, maybe at the start you'd build their themes from some common note motif that then later on it manifests in a way where it's obvious, or I don't know.
Well, it's foreshadowing. Like a writer will try to foreshadow, but you don't want to give it away either, though.
Right. Like the kind of foreshadowing where it's you don't realize it's foreshadowing until you rewatch the series or something like that. Yeah.
You touched on it for our final question. You touched on it. Okay, for a kids series, this gets dark. How fun is it doing music for a children's show where you can actually kind of scare the kids or go for darker places?
I think that's one of the great parts of this TV show is that you can kind of share with children that through the ups and how can you bring them from the darkness back to the light, or how can you go there without, and what's the lesson learned from that, and that going to a scary place doesn't have to be terrifying per se. It might be terrifying in the moment, but then how can you grow from it, and endure.